Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Welcome to another episode of Peak Performance Podcast. This is episode number 16, Doing One Thing 10,000 Times. We'll be speaking today with Alex Changho. Alex helps entrepreneurs in the martial arts industry grow their schools and streamline their business. He started what he loved doing when he was 16 years old, running a karate school. Opening a new school in 2003, he started the school the way most business owners and coaches do, working 60 to 80 hours a week, not making any money, and struggling to live his passion. Finally, he had enough. He was focusing on efficiency and effectiveness and his own personal strengths. He transformed that business into a highly profitable, lean operation that he ran in just 32 hours a week. He was making the money that he wanted, and he had the time and the freedom that he so craved. Alex, welcome to the show. What did I leave out?
You know what, Thor? I just tell you, the most important thing that I think that any entrepreneur should do is be able to absolutely love what they do. There's so many ways today to be able to monetize our passions, like you said, and especially, to me, martial arts was always a passion for me, and it just helps so many people and serves so many people, and just to see other entrepreneurs in whatever field that they're in, be able to do something that really helps people. People shouldn't have to struggle, because there's so many strategies out there that people can use. They just got to be open to them and maybe find the guidance to do it. So yeah, man, so glad to be here today.
Well, I couldn't agree more, because when my kids were younger, they're now 18 and 21, we put them into Choi Kwan Do. And it's absolutely great, not only for the physical exercise and developing that skill in martial arts, but also what the martial arts teach. And I think that is absolutely amazing. And I know you are so committed to that space and working with kids as well.
Absolutely.
So how did Changho, where does that come from?
That's an interesting story here, Thor. So my mother's Filipino and my dad's Chinese. And a lot of people know the last name Chang. I mean, it's one of the most common last names in the world. There's 10 million people with that last name. And when my father immigrated to the States, this is back in the late 60s, when you immigrate, you can choose whatever you're going to put on your legal certificate. And he decided that, you know what, and this is kind of my dad's style, he said, there's too many Changs out there. We want to be a little bit different. So he added the H-O at the end, the Ho, and that was to honor his father. His father's name was his given name was Changho. And so in the Chinese tradition, they always put the family name first, so it was Changho. And so he took that last part and added it on. So now it's Changho. So if you ever meet anyone with the last name of Changho, they're related to me. When my cousins, when my aunts and uncles emigrated to the States, they also took that surname Changho because my dad was the first one to emigrate over here.
That is awesome. It's kind of nice also in social media with my name, Thor Conklin. There aren't many of us. I don't think there's anybody else in the United States with that name.
That's right. That's right. So anyone that looks for me, they're like, well, which Alex Changho should I look for? And I'll say, well, just find one. I think I have 2 Facebook profiles currently, just one for an older thing that I used. And I said, don't worry, they're both me. So just find me.
Alex, you're a 6th-degree black belt in Taekwondo. You spent 24 years studying the art. What does it take to become a 6th-degree black belt?
It takes a lot of time, effort, and dedication, Thor. I started when I was 10. In fact, the funny thing was, I didn't want to do it at all. I was 10 years old. I was a shy, skinny 10-year-old kid, no friends. My dad kind of saw that. We just moved to North Carolina, and I used to play soccer and things like that with my friends back then. But being a shy kid, when I moved here, I didn't really feel comfortable going out there and doing these things. So my dad finally, seeing that I wasn't doing anything but my homework and playing video games, said, okay, you got to do something. One thing he always wanted to do was martial arts. So he asked me, Alex, hey, do you want to do karate? Do you want to do martial arts? I said, no, I don't want to do that. So like every good parent would, he went ahead and signed me up to try karate class.
That's what I do with my kids.
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell you, I was really upset. I was literally, Thor, kicking, screaming, and crying. Now, keep in mind, that might be appropriate for like a 4-year-old kid. No, I was 10. I was almost in the 6th grade. I was like halfway through the 5th grade year. But I was just so uncomfortable doing it. When I finally took the lesson and was going through it, I actually found out I kind of liked it and was kind of good at it. And so my dad asked me at the end, he's like, hey, so what did you think? And like every good 5th grader would say, I went, I really, really loved it. And I went, it was all right, So I just started. And one of the keys that my instructor, his name is Michael Wegman, really focused on was just to make sure that I came to class that next time. He didn't, we talk about making the black belt, right? Well, his true focus wasn't to help me make my black belt. I mean, it was in the long term, but his real focus was get me to that next class.
Nice.
Get me to that next class. Get me to that next class. Make sure I had an experience that was good, that I learned something, that I wanted to come back to that next class. And you do that long enough, Thor, you're going to be a 6th-degree black belt too. You got to get to that next class. You got to train. You got to make yourself better every day. And you got to, well, as the title of your show is, you got to perform. So it wasn't just about like, if I show up, I'm going to make it. No, but if I show up enough and I keep going, I will be able to perform at that level. Some people shorter, some people longer, but it's that continual habit of participation which leads to progress.
Yeah.
And with that progress, that can lead to performance.
Yeah, that is so important. People try to look at their goals and look where they're going, and they say, how am I going to get there? And then they try to come up with the silver bullet, the one thing that's going to get them from point A to point Z in one move. It doesn't work that way. It's the little things that stack on top of each other.
That's right. And I'll tell you, those silver bullets are easy to sell because everyone wants to buy them.
Absolutely.
You see a lot of marketing out there that's like, hey, I'll make sure you get 100 clients in 50 days.
Yeah.
And although some of them truly do work, truly building a business takes consistent effort and energy and perseverance and all these cool little life skills that they teach in martial arts, but it's the same thing that every kind of performer and entrepreneur needs to know.
Yeah. And you only have right now. You don't have tomorrow. You don't have the next day. All you have is right now. And it's what you do in this moment that counts.
That's right.
Bring us back to a time in your life when you needed to start or stop something in order to perform at the highest level.
Wow.
And a follow-up question, part 2 is, what brought you to that decision?
Here's the funny thing about this. So I used to live in Thailand. When I was about 13 years old, my dad's job got transferred overseas, so we ended up moving with him. And I lived in Thailand for 5 years. And during the school year, so let's pretty much say from August until June, I didn't train. So we'll say in a way I stopped. And here's what's really interesting about that, Thor. So every time I would come back, I would get back into training. I get back really, really intense. I literally go like every day. And for the first 2 weeks, it was absolute hell. But I had to get back into my, we can call it fighting shape. I had to get back so I can get my flexibility back. And it's interesting you bring that up because the whole idea of starting and stopping to perform, I stopped. And it wasn't actually to perform. It's just because I got distracted. And the distraction was called living on the other side of the world. But getting back in, I really had to push. I had to have that immersion. I had to have that intensity. And here's the thing about it. Although I was able to perform, I wasn't actually performing at the same level that I would have if I had never stopped. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There was a cost to stopping that, again, I'll never get back. Here we are now, let's call that when I was 15 years old, so 20 years later. And if those 2 years, or actually, I'm sorry, it was 5 years, those 5 years, that if I hadn't stopped and started, I may be a world champion right now. I'm pretty good, but I could have been a world champion if I had kept that up. And my instructor even told me that. He said, man, if during those times you had kept training during the school year and hadn't stopped. And sometimes sometimes you need to stop something. Sometimes you need to stop eating bad food. Sometimes you need to stop being distracted. Sometimes you need to start exercising. I'll tell you, the cost of stopping something that was really great for you, we can get a lot of things back, but time is not.
Yeah, and it's like a merry-go-round. As you're playing on the merry-go-round on the playground, once you get it going, it's easy to keep it going. But if you stop, you've got to have a whole momentum to get it going again. And I use this with my clients in life. If you stop, it's like getting off the train. Well, you stay at that station, the train continues on, so that your forward progression is stopped. There's another train coming which you can get back on. You don't go back to the start. People always say, I don't know if I can start over again. Well, you're not starting over. You're just starting from where you stopped. But your train, your progression would have been on that train ahead of you. So you're just behind. And with the train, what happens to the train? If the train does 60 miles an hour down the track, when it stops at the station, it doesn't immediately start doing 60. It takes some time to get going again.
That's right.
I know in martial arts, and when I was taking it, what I got bored with was doing the same move over and over and over again. Tell me what that was like, and how did you wrap your mind around doing this monotonous task over and over again? Because quite frankly, that's what creates peak performers. You're doing the same thing over and over until you master it. I just didn't have the patience when it came to martial arts. How do you do that? How do you get your mindset around that?
There's a couple things. We have this technique called disguised repetition, which means we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it in a different way. So the content's the same, but the context might be a little bit different. I'll give you an example. So let's say you're punching, right? You're learning how to punch. That's a pretty basic move in martial arts. Well, if you just punch the air, thousands of times, or let's use the old number, you punch 10,000 times, then sure, you'll be able to master that. But there's a problem. Getting to 10,000 times punching there, someone might not get there to the point of mastery. So instead, what you do is you have different context to it. So for example, maybe you're going to punch in the air for 2,000 times. But then what you're also going to do is learn how to punch a target. So instead of just punching, you're now punching a target. And you do that a couple thousand times. And then we teach you how to punch a board 2,000 times. And we teach you how to punch like when you're sparring. You do that 2,000 times. And suddenly these things add up. You're doing the same content, the punch, but you have it in different applications. But here's the bonus of that. By learning how to do it in different contexts, you're not just doing this 10,000 times and learning how to punch, but you're learning different applications of it, which when it gets into our body, when it gets into our psychology, when it gets into us, we really, really own it. And it's not just, again, doing it one way, but we know how to do it many ways. So that makes it even more powerful.
In order to go from where you were to where you are now, someone had to help you along the way. Who was that? What did they provide? Bring us back to that moment.
Dude, I'll tell you, I didn't have help from one person. I had help from a bunch. And I wish I could name them all, but I'll name a few. The first person, my mentor, who's been almost like a father to me because he started with me when I was 10, was my instructor, Michael Wegman. And actually, Michael is he's been the linchpin to so many things in my life. Number one, he was my martial arts instructor. He actually wasn't my first martial arts instructor, but he's the one who actually guided me. The funny thing was, he bought the school that I was training at, and so I actually came along with all the furniture and all the things on the wall. I was just like, I was an acquisition almost. But it's through his guidance that I was able to get to my black belt and want to be an instructor. And he really inspired me. One of the things that I really truly believe is that people will come to you for what they can learn from you, but they're going to stay with you for who you are. And I just remember, I was let's say a 15-year-old kid, and he was 9 years old. He's 9 years older than I am, so he's 24. And he was driving, this is, years and years ago, he was driving a Mustang, and then later he had an RX-7, and he was doing martial arts as his career. And, he really performed in school. He was the top in his class at his college, NC State. And I saw that, and I said, that's really cool. He can do what he loves as his career. I had no idea how much money he made, but I knew that he had a lot of fun doing what he did, and he helped a lot of people. So that's the first inspiration I had.
I love
first
that.
Mentor.
They come to learn and they stay because of who you are.
That's right.
That's awesome.
That's right. I mean, just think about it here, Thor. There's a lot of people out there that you can learn from that are really smart, that have great skills and great tactics, and you can go and learn from them. But do you really want to stick with them forever? You look at someone like our someone who's a role model for both of us, who's Tony Robbins, and he's got a huge following because of the way that he lives his life. Now you see some other people that maybe don't have great character, really smart, but maybe are very, very polarizing. And you know what? Some people are attracted to them, which is cool, but a lot of people are not. So you might still be able to learn from them, but you don't want to be like them, and so you don't really choose them as a mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have something to learn from everyone. Even if you're a disaster, you can teach me what not to do.
That's right. It doesn't mean you want to hang around them and be like them.
No, but I want to know how did you mess up?
Yeah.
I want to learn. So I don't do it. Exactly. I work with so many entrepreneurs, and the one thing that is the basis, is the center of what I've always done, is figure out what you can give to people. If you can do that, as opposed to going into the market, figuring out what you can extract, it changes the entire game.
Yes.
People think that peak performers are always doing things correctly. It just all kind of falls into place. It all works. It doesn't, as you know. We're just moving so quick that the ones that don't work, you don't see, because we're moving on to the next thing very quickly. And I'm not talking about careers or business ideas. I'm just talking about executing within those businesses, or whether it's your health, it's your fitness, your relationship. You just keep doing things. If something doesn't work, you try the next thing so it works. As peak performers, we always have to be making decisions very quickly. Many times we don't have the correct data. We have limited data, and we've got to make a decision anyway. And for a lot of people, it's difficult for them to make a decision without all the answers. And life just doesn't work that way. What do you do to overcome that?
I don't. I just make a decision. I mean, I think it's very difficult to assume. I mean, we'd all like certainty. We'd all like to know that the decision that we're making is the right decision. We all would like that, but the reality is we can never know that. And we can mitigate and do our market research and whatnot, but the challenge with that is there's a place for that. And if it's a situation where we do have the luxury of having some time to make it, that's great. Other times, you can collect that data and get that certainty. So here's another way to get the certainty, is try something. My dad has a saying. I was a really, really picky kid. I'll eat almost anything now, but I was a really picky kid when I was growing up. And I would try different food, and he wanted me to try different foods. Look, I'm Filipino, man, so they eat all kinds of weird stuff. And he had a saying, which is, Alex, try it. And if you don't like it, spit it out. And so sometimes you just got to try something. You got to try. You got to try a book. You got to try a mentor. Try an activity, and you will instantly find out if you like it or not. And then you can make a decision. You can sit there and wonder, well, am I going to like this? Am I going to like this kind of pizza? It's got these kind of mushrooms, and I've had these kind of mushrooms in the past, but I think I like them, but not with the cheese. Or you can just put the damn piece of pizza in your mouth, chew it, and decide if you like it or not within seconds, and then spit it out if you don't like it. And that's the same thing you can do with so many different things, even with the relationships. Do I like this girl or not? I don't know. Go out with her, and you'll find out within a few minutes. And then afterwards, you don't have to go out with her anymore, or guy, or whoever it is.
It's funny because when my kids were younger, of course, I was talking about a lot of these things. And it was like, Dad, come on. Do we really have to hear that again? Or, Dad, I've heard that 1,000 times. And it was interesting because my daughter just had an opportunity to do a program that gave her an opportunity to kind of look back and see where her life had come from and where it was going. And she came to me afterwards and she goes, Dad, all that stuff you told me that I didn't want to listen to, thank you.
That's right.
So
now, I may not be as big as your daughter is to go to my dad and say, hey, Dad, you know what? Remember when I was little and you told me to just spit it out? Well, I may be using that with my clients right now. I'm on a national podcast, and I just use your example, so thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Alex, knowing what you know now, if you had the ability to go back and tell your 13-year-old you, what would you tell him?
Go after that girl.
Tell me more.
I see that question all the time, and I say this: go after that girl. And I use that metaphorically. Really, is and again, I was not always as Thor. I'll be honest. I guess I could lie all day, but I'll be honest. I don't always go after everything that I want now, but I do it a lot more than I used to. But when I was younger, I would be a lot more timid. I'd be that person that wanted that certainty, and I would say, "Hey, go after that girl." I like girls, and I wouldn't talk to them. Or I liked an activity, and I found out later on that I'd be pretty darn good at it. If I'd started with it years before, I would have been excellent. Sometimes we don't think we're good enough. I'd rather be that kid that thought he was the best at everything and found out he wasn't, and then was able to practice from there, than be the kid that I was that turned out that there was a lot of stuff. I remember one girl, and I can't remember when it was, but later on she was like, "Oh, I had this big giant crush on you," and I was like, "What?" Because I had a big giant crush on her too. I think this was in high school or something like that. Or there was like a time that I could have learned how to play music. I'm always interested in music. My sisters all play the piano and stringed instruments. My parents never made me do something. And I look back and I say, there was a little bit of time where I didn't want to do something, but most often it was because I was afraid. If I had just overcome that fear and given it a shot, then I'd be able to play music now. I've really learned something, which is simply this. If sometimes you feel something isn't right, then you shouldn't do it. But if you feel something's right, but you're a little afraid to do it, then that's a big sign you should do it. You should give it a shot. You should talk to that girl. You should try out that activity. You should try out for the play. That's another one when I was 13 years old. Try out for the play. But go for it. If you don't think it's right, maybe it's not. But if you know it's right and you're afraid, do it. Do it anyway.
That's awesome advice. There's always pain, or there's always a price to be paid. And sometimes it's stepping outside your comfort zone and really going for it. You may not feel comfortable doing it, but just doing it. Or there's a pain of regret. And
Yes.
The latter is a very expensive proposition. Alex, you're doing some amazing work with karate schools, with kids. Tell the audience how to get a hold of you.
Well, the easiest way is on Facebook, and just find me on there by searching Alex Changho. That's Changho, and again, it's Chang plus Ho at the end. You can also go to alexchangho.com. I don't use my website very much, so you can look on there, but you may never hear from me if you go there. So find me on Facebook is the easiest way.
Awesome. Alex, we're at the part of the show which is known as the Rapid Fire Execution Round. In 1873, Cattleman came out with a revolver. It was a .22 caliber revolver. It had 12 rounds. You are going to have 12 questions to complete in the next 2 minutes. If you can do it in 2 minutes, the revolver will not go off and you will continue to be a peak performer.
Awesome.
Are you ready?
I sure am. Let's do it.
Okay, let's set the timer. Do you mark your achievements day by day, month by month, quarter by quarter, or year by year?
Month by month.
One thing you were told that turned out to be the most true from a mentor, friend, family member?
Okay. It's okay to want what you want.
Name one thing you did poorly last year, but this year you're doing better.
Living congruently.
Most useful app you're currently using, or system or technology?
Tinder, baby.
Ladies, take note of that and check out his photo on this podcast. One thing you must do every single day.
Workout.
What time do you start your day?
As early as possible, usually about 7.
Person whose phone call you'll take no matter what.
My parents.
Person you trust to tell you the truth about you, even if it's hard to hear.
Kevin Nations.
Most meaningful book you've ever read.
Ooh. I don't know if I can do that one in 2 minutes. I'm just going to pick one really quick that helped me this year, which is Ask Gary Vee.
Most impactful speaker you've ever heard, and what did he or she say?
Steve Linder, and I can't say one thing, but he just taught me about my mind and behavior.
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
What technology do you swear by? A type of phone, software, operating system, etc.?
Right now, social media.
Nice. Alex, you survived the rapid fire execution round. Congratulations.
What was my time?
Your time is under 2 minutes.
Excellent.
We'll find that out when I do the editing. Wait a second. Multitasking is not very good, right? Stay focused on one thing. What parting advice do you have for our listeners?
The biggest thing is simply this. You're someone who has passions, who has ideas, has interests, and like I said earlier, that's my mentor Kevin Nations told me, it's okay to want what you want, and it doesn't matter what anyone else wants or what they think you should want. What you want is just fine, and go after that. And when you do that, you'll do it out of congruence. You'll do it out of integrity, because it's who you really are and what you really want, and people will be able to tell, and that's going to help you be successful however you define success.
That's awesome. Well, I'm honored and privileged to call you a friend of mine. We've known each other probably for about 10 years now, and it's been a really great honor and pleasure to see who you've become. You were a rock star back then, but just to see the growth and the development and who you've become is just amazing. I love you, man, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Thor. Likewise, you're a great role model and a great leader, and I just love witnessing your own success, so thank you.
Growing every day, baby. Alex just reminded me that it's only been 5 years since I've known him. It feels like 10. Question of the day. In what area of your life you know that constant repetition, doing the small things every single day, is going to build a ritual, a habit that will help you to get to the next level as a peak performer? Call to action. Schedule time on your calendar every day to make sure that you get in those repetitions. If you are not already subscribed to the show, please go to iTunes, subscribe, download the new episodes, review those episodes, and please leave us a rating in iTunes. If you found this episode to be helpful, please share this with your friends, family, and coworkers, or anyone that could benefit from this information. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at thorconklin.com. Our website is thorconklin.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter. Also, you can leave us any information, send us any questions at info@thorconklin. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do, and until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.